before the Middle Passage, kidnapping savages, rapes, chains, before the more civilized Spain, before the Carthaginians, the
ruling class do not have an interest in the poor and working people, particularly the black people of the United States.
Black people, the first intellect on the planet, pioneers of civilization overstand. Black people, children of the sun, blessed with melanin, but we always want to run and get a gun. Black people, creators of math, science, astrology, so many kids don't know that.
A war against the black male in urban cities. That is war. And what you're seeing in Baltimore is just another example of people rebelling against that war and oppression.
You use the word war.
Yes, sir.
Why is food and drugs under the same administration? They putting drugs in the food to keep money accumulating now. They like to call it additives and preservatives.
Baltimore is 26 miles from the capital of the Western world, D.C. Baltimore is a city of 69, maybe 70% black. But it's also a city that has the highest rate of HIV young people between the age of 13 and 21, has the highest rate of unemployment. Why? Because steel mills, textile mills, the car industry, the heart and soul of the Baltimore working class, both black and white, moved, left the country, got a tremendous tax break from leaving the country, and left Baltimore as a no man's land, where you see constantly young white kids and young black kids don't have enough to eat.
So let me gather my thoughts for you. I play my part, let the truth spark. You're no longer in the dark after I say this. We'll
right here, this is the center of Baltimore.
Play this. African boy and girl play out the same script. But first we must be leaders. First we must be teachers. Let us begin. My queen, I apologize on behalf of all black males for the lies and betrayal. Mental sickness from years of our people suffering daily made me deny what the black woman has gave me throughout our history. Although it remains mystery what a true calling is.
Baltimore, in many respects, is not unlike a lot of urban centers in the United States with respect to the conditions that African Americans are dealing with. That has resulted in the current acute and chronic conditions that they're dealing with now.
Here's what's simple. You come to Baltimore, you have to be able to see both Baltimores. There's a white Baltimore that is upscale, young, professional, well-educated, ambitious, upwardly rising. There's a black Baltimore that's disproportionately old, very, very young, both at the same time, poor, undereducated, underemployed, despairing, and looking not too much to the future. Looking at Baltimore, and you see all the wonderful things you see on TV. The harbor, the sports teams, all of the facilities where people may come to perform. Those amenities exist for that other Baltimore. If you happen to be poor, there really isn't much of a Baltimore for you other than the opportunity just to get to the next day if you're lucky. I'll tell you a little bit about Old Town. Old Town, as I said, is about 90% African American. Capital income for African Americans is about $8,000. If I go where they were celebrating last September, the 200th anniversary of the Star Spangled Banner, which is a community called Locust Point. The per capita income there differs by about $52,000 in terms of white people there. That per capita difference is explainable because most people in Old Town, if you're male and you're black, you're not working. Unemployment in this area is massive.
He's our best example of black nationalism. He worked relentless, his mind you couldn't imprison. African world vision he displayed so consistent is the template for African independence.
Part of the crisis is what do you do with a large population who you don't have jobs for and who you're not going to have jobs for. In order for you to create jobs, you'll notice that in the West, they always talk about the economy is growing or it's not growing. They never talk about development. because the economy can grow without development.
The question is, well, what do you have, young man? I have the opportunity to work for what you bring to the job, for what the boss takes away from the arena of commerce? No. You get paid the least it takes your boss to replace you from somebody else on the street. There is one job in places like Baltimore City that never goes unfilled. The job is hard, it pays relatively little, it's dangerous as can be, but it's never lacking a long line of people looking to fill it. That job, of course, is drug dealing.
So you have a number of things taking place simultaneously. You have those who are employed, but they're not earning a decent wage. Those who are unemployed and they don't have the necessary skills to participate in the economy. Then you have new arrivals who are primarily of European descent, white Americans with skills, with knowledge, abilities, and connections who are inheriting the traditional spaces that these employed, underpaid, and the unemployed once dwelled in. That whole dynamic is creating a tremendous amount of upheaval and a lot of the acute and chronic challenges.
And the fact that they have torn down all of the public institutions for education, where will black men go? There's no future for them. They have decided to create as much chaos in the black community as they can. And the numbers are astounding. In the New York Times, 1.5 of all Afro-American men are no longer involved in society. They're either in prison or on parole, but they have no future.
These black men are fathers, they are husbands, they are uncles, they are neighbors, they are workers that are being pulled out of our economy, out of our community. And it has had a devastating impact on the black family and on the nation itself.
Part of the strategy is to isolate people of color, is to shift them to the periphery of the society. And it's similar to what happened in the 50s and the 60s when we had urban renewal, which we call Negro removal.
I would venture to say that I think it's more oppressed now than it was during my time, even though racism was more open. But it's more oppressive now for the simple reason is that they had a goal. And the goal is to move black people out, to clear these cities, and make it a safe environment so these young white millennials can come in here and have a good time.
You keep trusting the enemy with your well-being, black man, black woman. What is it you're not seeing? Deaf, dumb, blind, and sick, all the while slaving to keep them rich. Wake up and read the label. Tell that cracker keep them crumbs on his table.
There's every law in the book to say that if you think about anything other than capitalism, you're going to prison.
What happened in Baltimore was a part of a long history of African Americans rebelling against an offensive, discriminatory system where they have not been able to breathe.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
That responded to what happened with Freddie Gray in Baltimore. They were rebelling against a system of oppression. And that process of rebelling from the enslavement period to the Jim Crow period to the war on drugs has continued, and it has just culminated with what took place in Baltimore. It is not an isolated incident. That is war. And what you're seeing in Baltimore is just another example of people rebelling against that war and oppression.
Now, when you look back, what's the difference between breaking my neck and hanging me from a tree? What's the difference between breaking my back for some cigarettes, smothering me, than hanging me from a tree? This ruling class has declared war not only on Iraq, not only on Venezuela, not only on Cuba, but on mankind. And we only have to mention what they did to the indigenous people. Before anything started with the slaves, they annihilated the American Indian. And we don't even talk about the fact that Afro-Americans worked for 350 years and we did not get one dime.
There's a history of inequality. There's a history of injustice.
There's a history of genocide.
Yes, sir.
There's a history of genocide.
There is. And this country, in many respects, was born soaked in the blood and tears of many of our ancestors whose spirits echo out for justice.
A basic thing is that the civil rights approach no longer works. Police brutality is not only because of what the police do, but because of what blacks do to themselves. There's no fear. These kids today are a line that's drawn between the traditional civil rights approach and what the kids want today. They realize that peaceful means at the current just don't work. The police are not afraid, and the justice system is so unjust that nothing will be done to them.
The position of the police is to protect and serve, but to protect and serve who? Because they say in those neighborhoods, the wealthy neighborhoods, they tell us what to do. When we're in the black and Latino neighborhoods, we tell the people what to do.
When I was there being an activist, every year I was on the police department, they tried to fire me. I wasn't afraid, and you had to deal with those white folks in terms of the power they wanted to exercise over you. My colleagues also witnessed what happens because it brought a lot of, I had threats on my life. They were calling my house, they was threatening my family. But I used to tell them all the time in roll call, I carry a gun. And so don't let me catch you on the wrong side, because I would use my gun.
I know black cops will tell you that they've been stopped by other cops, by white cops. There have been at least 2 homicides in Washington, D.C., where white cops shot black policemen.
I don't think this police chief that we have now and have had for 8 years or something like that, I don't think she serves in the best interest of the people.
A week before the situation in Baltimore, the policeman stops a 51-year-old black man for a traffic stop. He tries to run away. He's 7 feet away from the guy, and the guy shoots him 8 times in the back. This is modern day lynching.
I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to get out of my face. I have my rights.
Get the hell out of
here. Man, I haven't done anything wrong.
You see us all? We're not fucking around. You understand? Do not disrespect us.
I'm not.
And do not listen to us.
I'm not.
Now walk away and shut your fucking mouth or you're going to jail.
But you got to remember, man, every effort that has been made since after the Civil War to organize and have independent movements in the United States has been crushed viciously by the police department.
There are real problems in America of which these police killings are a result of the decay in the society.
The majority of white Americans now, they support the police. They support the atrocities. They're saying, listen, we want our police department to keep these niggas in check.
And so human rights, no, it's how much money do you have? That's what it is. It's a capitalist society. It started that way with slavery, so it has not changed.
Really, it should be called the new slavery, because that's exactly what's happening. It's a new slavery, and they're using the criminal justice system as a new slave master. I realize now that the institutional racism in this country right now is more sophisticated than it was years ago.
Because of the advancement of technology, because of the fact that all of the industrial jobs have moved overseas, no longer have any value. So they have decided to let the Obamas, the Susan Rice, the Colin Powells, the most conservative aspect of our black community has now made a bargain with the ruling class that we will try to control these black folks if you pay us and you let us participate in your society.
That these men are supposed to be wealthy, and they're giving this impression that they care about black folks, and they don't.
I don't think having a black president hasn't changed that. Nothing has sort of changed. If anything, it has brought out more oppression and more racism having a black president.
I think there are a lot of African Americans that feel bamboozled and hoodwinked. They feel they've been left holding the bag. I think partially because there were false expectations with respect of electing an African American into the presidency. Because the first job of the president is to, in fact, enforce the law and ensure the security of the nation state, not creating jobs nor addressing the historical contradictions of this country as it relates to African American people.
Barack Obama is the president, but he represents U.S. imperialism. It's his job.
There's no excuse for the kind of violence that we saw yesterday. It is counterproductive. When individuals get crowbars and start prying open doors to loot, they're not protesting. They're not making a statement. They're stealing. That is not a protest. That is not a statement. It's people, a handful of people taking advantage of the situation for their own purposes, and they need to be treated as criminals.
These are our people. This is our city. This is not Obama City. He didn't know what's going on, right? So he cannot say that they was criminals. It was all because of the riot. Everything that went on was all because of the riot. Everybody just got fed up.
Stereotype everybody in Baltimore City because everybody didn't participate. Everybody didn't loot or steal or riot or anything like that. Right. So he can't just stereotype us.
Every single struggle in this country has been led by black people. Whether it was the labor movement, the civil rights movement, we're the only group of people, of immigrants, that didn't come here on our own. And consequently, everything that we've got has been a result of a fight.
Police officers eventually started throwing bricks back. I saw a bloodied police officer being carried by his comrades. And
rebel because you cannot take it anymore. And because your belief is that the people who you're dealing with are not going to change unless you rebel.
And at some point, you get that critical mass where your resentment is shared by all the other people like you around you until it just erupts. So Baltimore City is always a ticking time bomb that gets bigger and bigger with each passing generation.
And that's why we are in Baltimore. That's why we are in Ferguson. That's why we are critiquing the American enterprise, to hold America accountable, to live up to what it says it's about. And that's what I see those of us who are critical thinkers, who are educated, who are armed with the pen to write, to document, to critique, to identify the contradictions, must stay vigilant and must stay on our posts.
It's going to be a tough period. It's going to be tough. You know, but we're facing a tremendous, powerful enemy.
And this is the challenge. How do you engage people who routinely ignore what goes on in Baltimore?
No one was paying attention to any of what was going on in Baltimore until things got violent. And so, you know, how can you just stay nonviolent to a system that oppresses you in such violent ways?
How do I march peacefully down the street when I have a police officer with a gun behind me in his car, 2 police officers telling me I have 9 minutes to get into my house?
when we know for a fact that those people are the same people who are plaguing our society? So why am I going to contribute to asking the people who are plaguing my society for help?
Baltimore, the day after the so-called riots, they had tanks, they had armored cars. You understand what I'm saying? They had snipers on the wall. They had soldiers, National Guard all around.
Well, there are policies whereby the government can call a state of emergency and then call in the National Guard. And supposedly that's for the protection of the state and for people second.
What they said to you is that private property is worth more than human lives. You know, but I think what you also saw is that the young people don't give a damn because they don't feel that they got a future.
Shut down the bus station, the subway station, and all that.
National Guard, all police was all around here. We couldn't even go over there to catch the bus or anything. Like, we was just closed in. We had to follow the crowd everywhere. Everybody was together.
So, like, what do you expect us to do if we can't go nowhere? If we can't get on the bus, we can't get on no subway, what do you expect us to do?
And that
was the outcome.
Yeah, the buses was going all the way around. You had to meet the bus somewhere else. The bus don't even come to the stop. So...
between a revolution and a riot is that when white people in the American Revolution burn down their cities, when they, bomb other countries, when Western cultures, when America goes to another, destination and they bomb them, it's called revolution. It's called fighting for freedom. But when we do it, it's called a riot.
We didn't talk about violence. We talked about resistance. The right and the responsibility to resist, to protect your community.
I think it's revised. After so many years, from the 60s, we're talking 50 years revision. No, it's not a break. It's finally been resurrected.
Look, people have the right to protest and express their frustration. But Baltimore city families deserve peace and safety in their communities. And these acts of violence and destruction of property cannot and will not be tolerated.
I think that Freddie Gray, the young man that was savagely brutalized while in the custody of police, so by the hands of police officers, was the impetus, was the moving factor.
The police officers in this incident have violated several policies. The first policy was they never had a seatbelt on Freddie. The other violation was that when an individual says that they want a medical assistance, you had to get a medical assistance. That's in the general orders. So if you can violate the general orders and then be brought up on administrative charges. Right. That's not necessarily criminal charges. Being brought up on criminal charges is what we see now with the state's attorney. The general order is no more than a parameter or policy paper in terms of what you can do and what you can't do while you're a police officer.
Violence is what took my brother's life. Yeah. So they put a target on my head, but I don't care if I got a target or not. I'm going to fight for mine. I love my brother. I'm my brother keeper, and I love my community. Yeah. That's why I do what I do. And I'm not going to stop until killer cops are in cell blocks. Yeah. That's justice. If it's not that, it's nothing. That's phony. It's nothing.
There's been a call to say that we want to convict the officers that committed that heinous crime. But those heinous crimes happen in Baltimore all the time. Those heinous crimes happen all across the United States all the time. Like black men, black people are being murdered and being brutalized by the police. And so in those specific kind of ways, like I think that you have to wait and see what the government and what the city officials are going to do.
But keep in mind that white conservatives do not have a very warped sense of justice. Their justice means that if we as whites can be protected, that's justice. If blacks or Latinos or Asians or anyone interfere with our form of justice, their form of justice is injustice.
People took footage of my brothers. They're hiding, they're covering this up.
Definitely gonna have to look at what happened in New York City. I mean, Pantaleo, he was seen violating New York City, choking the guy in violation
over cigarettes.
That's right, over New York City police policy.
Over selling cigarettes.
Right, and a interracially mixed grand jury decided not to indict him. All you need is one or two who will say no. And the whites did that. But we need to prepare for that. And when it comes down, if it comes down that they are found not to be guilty, prepare for another riot or protest, see.
We're not going anywhere. We done stood with Eric Gardner's family. We done met Michael Brown's family. This is not a game. Anthony Anderson's poor family. This man was killed by the same unit in front of his mother, his granddaughter on her birthday. This is disgusting. And they want to cover it up like this is the first time. They know it's not the first time. This been going on forever. This is the first time they got caught up. That's all. Let's not get it twisted.
They've gotten away with it. They know just how much assault and battery the department will let them commit. They know just how many false arrests the department will let them do. They know just how much.
Quite correctly, that it is their First Amendment right to film the police in public. And yet they, like so many
to figure out what happened. The department has already said the officers acted appropriately. Case closed. That's it. If the department does, by some miracle, by some chance, discipline anything for what happened, I will immediately, because they know they can, they do it, because they know they will get away with it. None of the America was shocked at what they saw police doing to Rodney King. Black America would have loved to have been shot by what
Here's a big dilemma with Americans. Do I want to participate in this American dream, which is really a nightmare? Do I want to try to see if I can maneuver within the trap of this society, or do I want to create an alternative kind of movement? The majority of our leadership has said they'll take the beans off the table than to sacrifice and go a different way. If we don't fight, if we don't organize, if we don't build, if we don't make links with other oppressed minorities, we lost.
Question is, can America survive as we have known it to be?
We have a challenge. We have a challenge to educate ourselves with correct education, to empower ourselves with critical thinking, with good diets, with collective economics. We have to link together the people of the world. We can get on one accord and we can address some of the white supremacist challenges that are preventing humanity from expressing itself. The beauty of humanity, the art, the music, the improvisation, the dance, the promise of the future lies in the people of the so-called developing world. cannot allow those oligarchs and plutocrats to continue to smother the beauty and the genius of the people around the world. No justice, no peace. Yes, sir. No justice, no peace.
See, I'm about to leave this planet. I'll be back in about an hour. The mothership is landed here to take me to my power, universal limit. It caused the clashes, catastrophic actions, all the result from my galactic rap. Hey, righteous rhyme, ripping rebel, gripping devils. Why you think they call me Michael Gabriel? I'm here to aid you. Fighting through this tripe like life singer, my savior. Get it cooking, packing like bookings when we blaze the booth. People want me silent cause I raise the truth. I tell the youth, they're not just the kids, they work is no value. Just be aware of the worldwide wicked, the wicked witches of the west set to wreck your image and turn your art into a gimmick for the rich. Take off your lifestyle, keep grinding till your dreams bust out. A true money shot, dispersing all over the tracks, yo. Now they salty cause this young man rapping the facts, yo. Style cut up like Photoshop, pure laugh, so I'm about real hip hop and taking this back.